Okay, hi again. So in this video I'm going to just quickly go over some alternate ways to specify color in addition to the basic hexadecimal way that I think we've been using most of the time. So we've kind of gone over the color stuff before, and here you can see in the styles in the head here we're using the hexadecimal system. So remember that the hexadecimal system is you can either write it as 6 letters or numbers from 0 to F or as 3, which we'll get to in a minute. So the first two numbers are the amount of red, it's RGB, remember the RGB thing. The second two are the amount of green, and the third are the amount of blue. So this color right here, 0000FF, would be 0 red, 0 green, and all blue, so it'd be blue. And we go on from there. So basically, the lower the numbers, the darker the color, the higher it is, the brighter the color. Black is all zeros, white is all Fs. And the reason it's like that, again, is because we are specifying a 3-digit number basically with 2 numbers or letters. So that's why it goes from 0 to F. If you want to get super technical, it's actually base 16, but that's probably not necessary to even know, because you can always go in Photoshop or some other program and pick out a color. All right, so that's what we have for these colors, the same thing that we've kind of been doing most of the time, but I wanted to go through some other possible optional ways to do it. So the first one, we're doing it the same way. We're saying P style equals color, so this is a local style, just works in this paragraph, and it's going to give that text a color of dark red, because we have 0 green and 0 blue, and we have a little bit of red, which is 6. So that gives us this color here over on the right here. We can also leave out some of these numbers or letters if we want to double up the value for each position here. What does that mean? So 099 or 090 is this color. It's this sort of greenish color. Is the same as saying 009900. So whenever you have 3 numbers or letters using hex, it's the same as doubling each one. So it's 009900 is the same as 090, and you can see the color is the same. So it actually is not a huge deal. Who cares? It saves you 3 characters, but if you want to do it that way, you can. This is a different way to do it. So instead of specifying by hexadecimal colors, you can use RGB colors, which we actually are doing with hex, but we can write it as RGB values instead of hexadecimal values, which are a little confusing, you have to admit. So if you want to do RGB, you say the same thing, color, but then you say RGB instead of this hash mark. And then in parentheses, you specify the amount of red, green, and blue. It's still red, green, and blue, but it's just written in RGB values, which go from, instead of going from 00 to FF, they go from 0 to 255. So there's 256 possible levels of RGB, or of red, green, and blue. So here we have 25500. That means all the red, 0 green, and 0 blue, which gives you this red color right here. Let me go quickly to Photoshop so I can show you how to get these numbers. So here I am in Photoshop. If I click on the foreground color picker down here at the bottom, I get the color picker, which we've seen before. So again, if I want to put in a number into RGB, I can see what color that is. There's 25500, and that gives me red. You can see the hex down here is FF0000. If I want to just pick a color, I slide the slider again up to hue scale, and then I go over into the color picker area here and pick the color I want. So this color, this green color, is 4CDEB0 in RGB, or in hex, but it's also 76, 222, and 176. So it's the same color specified 2 different ways. And there's other ways too. You can actually use hue, saturation, and brightness, or HSL actually in HTML now. But yeah, we're just going over the RGB thing. Don't want to get confused here. So let's say I wanted this 76, 222, 176. Let's see if I can remember that. So if I go, see, I can't remember that long. 76, 222, 176. Here, I'll put this 76, 222, 176. 76, 222, 176. I think that's what the color that we came up with. And there's that color, right? So I could have done that with the hex number, this one, or the RGB, either one. They both work. Okay. So let me undo that. I'll go back to what I had before, which is red, 255. All right. So one other thing you can do, which is a little newer. So this has been around a while, this RGB thing, but this is a little bit newer. This is RGB Alpha. And what does that mean? So so you have 4 numbers instead of 3. Still have red, green, and blue, but the last one is alpha, which is basically transparency. So you can use RGBA and then specify your red, your green, your blue, and then your transparency, which is a number from 0 to 1. So if I say 0.5, it is really saying like 50% transparent. So that's why this color is the same color. We're still using red, but because it's partially transparent, it doesn't look as red as this because we're seeing through to the gray background. Here's another example using background color on elements. So instead of saying color for the text, we'll say background color, and we'll use RGB for background color. So here it's 255.0.255, which is this bright sort of fuchsia purple. But if I say background color RGBA instead of RGB, then we have the same color, 255.0.255, but this time I put 0.1, which makes it only 10% opaque, or 90% transparent, which is the same thing. And then now we're looking through that purple to the gray background, so it's kind of a light purple or grayish purple. So that is RGB Alpha, and that is a bit newer. And if I look at the support for RGB Alpha, this is from findmebyip.com/litmus, which is a site that shows support for different technologies and properties and things. So it's looking at CSS3 support. And if I look at RGB Alpha, here it is right here. You can see it's supported at the time of this video by all these browsers, the modern ones. And then it has IE. Doesn't work in IE 6, 7, or 8, but it does work in 9. So be aware that if some of your viewers are using IE 8 and 7, which they probably will, a few, they are not going to see that alpha thing. So don't do anything with RGB Alpha that will break your page if it doesn't work. Okay? All right, so I hope that adds a bit of added functionality for you, so you can try out some of that stuff and spice up the colors in your designs a little bit and use transparency if you need to. And I think that will do it for this one.